move on to the women's event. On the women's side, Serena Williams is the odds-on favourite to win, priced at -104. Do you think this is a good bet?
Well, you look at the run she's been on. She started 2012 with a fairly poor run in the Australian Open in Melbourne, and she didn't do a lot through to the French Open. Then she went out in the first round of the French Open, and it looked like things were winding down on her career, really. But then suddenly from Wimbledon onwards, she just went on an unbelievable run. She won Wimbledon, she won the Olympic gold, she won the US Open, she won the end of year tour finals. She won just about everything that was possible to win in the second half of the year. So she's certainly on a roll. The odds, yeah, there's clearly no value there, no real value. But when she's in this type of form, could you back against her? I think the fact there's been a break, the season's ended, it's a new season. I think that's maybe a time that run could come to an end. She doesn't tend to start the season that well, not in the last couple of years anyway. So I think it could be a chance for someone else. And no, I wouldn't back her at that value, but at the same time, it's very hard to back against her.
Right, okay, interesting there. Now, world number one, Victoria Azarenka, is priced at about 4-1 to defend her crown. Something a lot of bettors at the SBR Forum fancy as a good bet. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a great bet. I think Azarenka will do really well this time. She doesn't have, I think the main problem for her is she doesn't have the best record against Serena. I think she's only won 1 in 9. They were due to meet in Brisbane last week, of course, and she had to pull out in the semi-final with, I think she'd had a dodgy pedicure or something she put it down to. But hopefully she'll be fine for next week. And yeah, I again, like with Djokovic and Murray, I see these two, Azarenka and Serena, meeting in the final. Which they did in the US Open final, and that one came down to a couple of points in the final set that really, there was one point that Azarenka seemed to have it won. So I think it will be very tight between those two if they do meet in the final. And I think the value, if you can get 4-1 on Azarenka, is fantastic, yeah.
Now, also Maria Sharapova, she's about 11-1. I understand she withdrew from the Brisbane International due to a collarbone injury. Do you think the concerns that this may affect her serve are legitimate? And if so, is it a better idea to pass on her future until she comes out with good form in the early rounds?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. She does have trouble with her serve at the best of times. It's certainly her weakest, the weakest part of her game. There can be a lot of double faults come along at pressure points. So I think with that in mind, the injury in mind, then no, I wouldn't want to back her here. But she did have a good year last year. She got to the final at Melbourne. She won the French Open. She got to the, I think it was the semis at the US Open and the final at the end of year tour finals. And she won a silver at the Olympics. So she had a really consistent year. She's probably been a bit underrated for the year she had last year. The injury would concern me, and yeah, I would see other women as more value.
Right. Are there any other ladies to consider betting or to look out for?
Yeah, certainly. I think I'd be interested to see how Petra Kvitova gets on. She had an amazing 2011, won Wimbledon, won the end of year championships, and then didn't quite follow up on that last year. She did well in various events, but didn't really win any of them. But she's still a really strong, solid player. Is definitely due another good run at a Grand Slam. And I think it could come with the pressure off maybe a little bit with people looking at Serena and Azarenka. But maybe she could get deep into this one, and then she can cause problems. I remember at Wimbledon last year, her and Serena, it was probably the match of the tournament in I think it was the quarters. And she gave Serena a real run for her money, and considering the run Serena's on, then that was good. Yeah, Kvitova, I think around 25-1 for her is certainly good value. And maybe have a little look in on Wozniacki as well. She's not so long ago she was world number one without having won a Grand Slam, and she fell away a bit. The pressure was on to win the Slam, and I didn't feel she was ever going to do it while she was world number one because it just became too much of a pressure pot for her. But she's gone away, and it'll be interesting to see how she comes back. And for somebody who was world number one kind of just over a year ago, then 66-1 is very interesting.
Right, I think I'm backing Serena on this one. I feel she's hungry for it. All right, Daniel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
For SBR Forum, I'm Natalie Rydstrom.